The early morning sunlight filtered through the luxurious curtains in Barron Trump's spacious room. The clock had just struck 6 a.m., but the young man was already awake. In the stillness of dawn, Barron sat by the window, gazing at the city gradually coming to life below. Born into wealth and carrying the legacy of one of America's most powerful families, his deep blue eyes often carried an inexplicable loneliness. You shi yiga pu tongdarisi, just another ordinary day, Barron murmured in Mandarin, a language he had learned from his mother. Yet no day was ever truly ordinary for Barron Trump. Every step, gesture, or glance of his had the potential to become a trending topic on social media. Barron stood and walked to his wardrobe. Despite having an extensive collection of expensive fashion, he chose a simple white shirt and black trousers, outfits that attracted the least attention. It was a lesson he had learned early on. As he brushed his hair in front of the mirror, memories of his childhood rushed back. Barron recalled the days before his father became president. Though the family was already wealthy, his father often recounted the struggles of his grandfather, Frederick Trump, who built his career from nothing. Son, never forget that everything we have today started with sweat and tears, his father's words echoed in Barron's mind. At the same time, in a small apartment in a modest neighborhood, the sound of a middle-aged woman coughing broke the silence. Anna awoke with a start and hurried to the next room. "Mom, are you okay?" Anna asked worriedly, gently patting her mother's back. "I'm fine," her mother replied with a faint smile. "Go back to sleep. It's still early." But Anna knew she wouldn't be able to fall asleep again. Her phone displayed 6:15 a.m., just enough time to prepare for her first shift of the day. On her bedside table, a pile of unpaid bills loomed: rent, utilities, and most urgently, her mother's medical expenses. Anna sighed and ran a hand through her disheveled hair. It had been 3 years since her mother's diagnosis, and 3 years since Anna had worked tirelessly at the café. Every small tip she earned was carefully saved to help cover the family's expenses. "Another day," Anna muttered to herself as she put on her faded café uniform. The mirror reflected the weary face of a young woman, but her eyes still held a glimmer of hope. It was the one thing she refused to lose: faith in brighter tomorrows. A sleek black Cadillac glided smoothly through the streets of New York, carrying Barron and his two bodyguards past towering skyscrapers. Through the bulletproof glass, Barron observed the bustling pedestrians on the sidewalks. Typically, at this hour, he would have breakfast at Le Bernardin or another high-end restaurant, where private VIP sections and discreet staff were the norm. But today, a strange feeling stirred within him. Perhaps it was last night's conversation with his father about the early days of building their legacy, or the article he had recently read about rising poverty post-pandemic. Barron often wondered if he truly understood the lives of ordinary people, those who weren't born into privilege like him. "Pete, can we stop here?" Barron suddenly said, his eyes fixed on a small cafe at the corner of the street. Pete, the seasoned bodyguard in the front seat, exchanged a surprised glance with his colleague. He had been protecting Barron since childhood and rarely saw him make such spontaneous requests. "Are you sure?" "We haven't checked the security here," Pete replied, his tone filled with concern. "I'm sure," Barron affirmed, his eyes locked on the quaint cafe with its clear glass windows. Inside, a few patrons were enjoying their breakfast, completely unaware of the luxury car parked outside. There were no flashing cameras, no curious stares, and no phones raised to capture a photo. Just the serenity of an ordinary morning. This is perfect, Barron thought. A place where, for a fleeting moment, he could simply be himself, not the son of a former president or the heir to the Trump empire, but just an 18-year-old boy wanting to enjoy a cup of coffee. The doorbell jingled as Anna was wiping down the last table in her section. This morning's shift had been busy with the usual crowd, mostly office workers rushing in for their takeaway coffee. It was only 9:30 a.m., but Anna already felt drained. She had stayed up until 2 a.m. the previous night, finishing her budget report and figuring out how to make ends meet for the month. "Table 7 has a customer, Anna," her coworker Jennifer called out. Anna quickly straightened up, smoothed her apron, and grabbed her order pad. As she turned around, she noticed something unusual. Two men in black suits stood near the door, their watchful eyes scanning the cafe. Sitting at table 7 was a young man dressed simply, yet radiating an air of quiet sophistication. Barron felt the cafe's warmth as soon as he entered. The aroma of freshly baked pastries mingled with the rich scent of coffee, creating an unexpectedly comforting atmosphere. He chose a corner table, one that offered a full view of the cafe. Pete and Mike, his bodyguards, had done a quick security sweep and now stood at positions where they could monitor the room. Barron was aware that their presence might draw attention, but it was unavoidable. At least they were keeping their distance to give him some semblance of privacy. As the waitress approached, Barron noticed the weariness in her eyes despite the professional smile she wore. It was a look he had seen before, in old photographs of his grandfather and in the stories of his family's early struggles. "Hi, I'm Anna, and I'll be your server today," she said, her voice gentle and sincere. "What can I get for you?" Anna's heart raced as she realized who her customer was. How could she not recognize him? Barron Trump's face had been plastered across countless media outlets, but there was something strikingly different about seeing him up close like this. There was no arrogance or aloofness typically associated with the children of the wealthy. Instead, the young man's eyes reflected a calmness and loneliness. Anna wasn't sure if she was overthinking, but there seemed to be a deep sadness beneath his composed exterior. "A cappuccino and a milk pastry, please," Barron ordered, his voice gentle and polite. There was no indication he expected any special treatment. Anna nodded, striving to maintain her professionalism despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. As she turned away, she wondered if this could possibly be a dream. The son of a former president was sitting in her small cafe, placing an ordinary order like any other customer. While waiting for his drink, Barron pulled out the small notebook he always carried with him. It was a gift from his mother with a simple inscription engraved on the leather cover. "Write your thoughts, they matter." He began jotting down his observations. The cozy atmosphere of the cafe, the customers engrossed in their lives, and especially the waitress named Anna, whose tired eyes still shone with determination and warmth. Maybe this is what real life looks like, Barron mused. Not the lavish parties, not the press conferences, nor the endless comments on social media. But moments like this, simple, genuine interactions where people treated each other with sincerity. In the staff room, Anna tried to steady herself as she prepared the cappuccino. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear or nervousness, but from the emotions welling up inside her. "You okay?" Jennifer asked, placing a comforting hand on Anna's shoulder. "Yeah, I'm fine," Anna replied with a faint smile. "It's just, you know, my mom used to say that sometimes God sends angels to test our kindness. I don't know why, but I feel like today is one of those days." Jennifer gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "Then make the best cappuccino you've ever made." Anna nodded, quickly brushing away a tear before focusing on her task. She carefully crafted a heart design on the milk foam, a small touch she reserved for when she was in a particularly good mood. When Anna set the cappuccino down on the table, Barron couldn't help but notice the delicate heart on the surface. A small detail, yet it spoke volumes about the person who had made it. "Thank you," he said with a smile. "This is a work of art." Anna blushed slightly. "Thank you. It's just a little habit of mine." As Anna turned to leave, Barron watched her retreating figure and thought about his conversation with his father the night before. "You know," his father had said, "sometimes the people who work the hardest are the ones with the most genuine smiles." Sitting in this small cafe, Barron finally understood the depth of those words. He reached for his checkbook but stopped. No, a check would feel too impersonal. He wanted to leave something more meaningful. Pulling out a sheet of paper from his notebook, Barron began to write, each word filled with sincerity and understanding. "Your kindness and hard work don't go unnoticed. My family has been where you are. Stay strong. Brighter days are coming." He placed the note along with a generous tip beneath the empty coffee cup. It wasn't an act of charity. It was a message from the heart, from someone who had seen and recognized the kindness behind her weary smile. As Barron left, Anna didn't immediately clear the table. She waited until the chime of the door had faded and the tall figure of her extraordinary customer disappeared beyond the glass doors. Only then did she slowly approach table 7. The coffee was cold, but the heart-shaped foam remained, a subtle imprint of this special moment. As she lifted the cup, a small piece of paper slipped out. Anna's heart raced as she read the words written on it. Tears began to stream down her cheeks. "Anna?" Jennifer hurried over, her voice full of concern. "What's wrong?" Anna couldn't find the words to reply. She simply handed the note to her friend before sinking into a chair, burying her face in her hands. It wasn't because of the tip, though it would undoubtedly help with her mother's medical bills. It was the words as if Barron had seen into her soul, understanding the struggles and efforts she had been carrying silently. "My family has been where you are," the phrase echoed in Anna's mind. Was that why she had sensed something special in the young man's eyes? A profound empathy that transcended all barriers of status and background? For Anna, those words weren't just a message. They were a reminder that even in her hardest moments, she wasn't alone. Someone understood, and that made all the difference. The story didn't end there. A fellow customer in the cafe had captured the moment Anna read the note, and the photo quickly went viral on social media. But it wasn't the fact that it was Barron Trump that caught people's attention. It was the sincerity and humanity of his gesture. News outlets began reporting the story. Yet rather than focusing on sensationalism, they highlighted the tale of two individuals from vastly different worlds. One born into privilege but grounded in humility, and another battling life's hardships while holding on to kindness and grace. Anna started receiving messages from people all over the world, those who were also struggling, sharing their own stories of kindness they had experienced. The small cafe transformed into a symbol of hope and compassion. In his luxurious office, Barron followed the story's spread on social media. He hadn't intended to create a ripple. His only aim was to express gratitude to someone who had shown him the beauty of simplicity and sincerity. "You did the right thing," came his father's voice from behind him. Donald Trump placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Sometimes the smallest actions can bring about the biggest changes." Barron nodded, reflecting on the moment in the cafe. "I think I finally understand what you meant about never forgetting where we come from." Back at the Trump estate, Barron found himself unable to sleep. He sat by the window, gazing at the dazzling lights of New York City. Yet his thoughts lingered on the small cafe and Anna's eyes. For the first time in his life, he felt he had done something truly meaningful. Not as Donald Trump's son, but as himself. "Young master," came Pete's voice from the doorway, the seasoned bodyguard who had been with him for years. "You're not asleep?" "Pete," Barron turned to face him, "do you ever wonder what life is like for ordinary people?" Pete paused for a moment before stepping into the room. "Before I became a bodyguard for your family, I worked as a district cop. Every day I saw stories like the one with the waitress today. People struggling just to make it, yet holding on to their dignity. Do you ever feel guilty for having so much while others have so little?" "It's not guilt, young master," Pete replied, taking a seat nearby. "It's responsibility. When you're born into a position like yours, the important thing isn't to feel guilty, it's to use your privilege to do something meaningful." Barron pondered his words, his thoughts returning to the lessons his mother had taught him. He remembered evenings listening to her recount stories of her youth in Slovenia, of the hardships she endured before coming to America. Melania Trump had always reminded her son that wealth didn't define a person. How they treated others was the true measure of their worth. As Barron stared out at the city below, a new resolve began to take shape in his mind. It wasn't enough to simply observe or feel empathy. He needed to act. And for the first time, Barron felt a sense of clarity about the kind of man he wanted to become. In her small apartment, Anna still couldn't believe what had happened. She read Barron's note over and over again, each word sinking deeply into her soul. "My family has been where you are." Those words made her think about things she had never considered about the Trump family. "You're still awake?" her mother's voice called from the next room. "And so are you," Anna replied as she walked into her mother's room and sat by the bed. "I was thinking about your grandfather," her mother said with a faint smile. "He used to be a waiter, you know." "Really? You never told me that." "Those were hard times for our family," her mother said, taking Anna's hand. "He worked at a small restaurant in Brooklyn, pulling 12-hour shifts to support his 5 children. But he always said those days taught him the true value of money and the importance of kindness." Tears rolled down Anna's cheeks as a wave of realization washed over her. Suddenly, she understood that her story wasn't just about a chance encounter with Barron Trump. It was about the connections between people, about how shared struggles could foster empathy that transcended social barriers. At Trump Tower, Donald Trump watched the news reports about his son's actions. He picked up his phone, intending to call the public relations team to manage the narrative, but then hesitated. A distant memory surfaced. The image of his father, Frederick Trump, who had started his career in a small restaurant in Queens. "Father was right," Trump murmured, recalling his father's words. "Empires may be built from the smallest bricks, but true legacy lies in how we treat others." He dialed Barron's number. "Son, I just saw the news." "I'm sorry if this caused any trouble," Barron began. "No," Trump interrupted. "I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. Fred, your grandfather, would be proud too." The story of Barron and Anna didn't stop at a note and a moment. It became a source of inspiration for a new movement among New York's young elite. Wealthy youths began frequenting small cafes and modest eateries, not to flaunt their privilege, but to listen and learn. Jennifer, Anna's co-worker, started documenting the stories of their customers. Every person who walked into the cafe brought a unique narrative of struggles, of hope, of perseverance. 2 weeks after the event, Barron initiated a personal project. Without fanfare, cameras, or a PR team, he and Pete, his trusted bodyguard, began visiting small diners and cafes across New York. "I want to hear real story," he told Pete. "Not what people think I want to hear, but the truth about their lives." At every place he visited, Barron left not just a generous tip, but a handwritten note. Each message was a reflection of the unique story he had heard, carefully crafted to resonate with the person who had shared it. As word of Barron's quiet project spread, it inspired a broader dialogue about privilege and responsibility. In the cafes and restaurants he visited, people began to see each other not as customers or servers, but as individuals with their own journeys, struggles, and dreams. For Anna, the ripple effect of that one moment reminded her daily that even the smallest acts of kindness could create waves of change, and that her story was now part of something far greater than she could have imagined. In her small apartment, Anna no longer felt overwhelmed by the mounting bills. A local charity had reached out to help cover her mother's medical expenses. But more importantly, she had learned that hope could appear in the most unexpected places. "Mom," Anna said one evening as she sat by her mother's bedside, "I think I finally understand what you meant about the angels God sends." Her mother smiled and held her hand. "Sometimes they come in the form of people we least expect, don't they?" 3 months later, Anna's life had undergone profound changes. It wasn't just about financial stability, thanks to the influx of generous tips from new customers, but also about how she saw the world and herself. Each morning, instead of feeling burdened by the weight of life's challenges, Anna began her day with a new habit, writing down one act of kindness she could do for someone. Sometimes it was brewing an extra special cup of coffee for a loyal customer, and other times it was simply taking a few moments to listen to the story of a lonely patron. "Everyone has a story that deserves to be heard," she told Jennifer one quiet afternoon. "And sometimes all they need is someone willing to listen." One rainy afternoon, as Anna prepared to close the cafe, an elegant woman walked in. There was something strikingly familiar about her face. "Hello," the woman said in a soft voice tinged with an Eastern European accent. "I'm Melania Trump." Anna's heart nearly stopped. Standing before her was the former First Lady, Barron's mother. "I just wanted to come here to meet the person who has had such an impact on my son," Melania said with a warm smile. "Barron has told me about you, about your kindness and the way you treat everyone with such respect, no matter who they are." The two women sat at a table, and over the next 2 hours, they talked as if they had been friends for years. Melania shared stories of her early days in America, the struggles and prejudices she faced. Anna opened up about her mother, the sleepless nights worrying about medical bills, and her determination to keep going. "Sometimes," Melania said, "the hardest times in life teach us the most valuable lessons about empathy, and I'm so glad Barron has learned that from you." After her meeting with Melania, Anna started a small project at the cafe. She placed a large notebook on the counter, inviting customers to share stories of kindness they had received or given. The notebook quickly became a treasure trove of heartwarming tales, of small, meaningful moments where human connection shone through. "Dear Diary of Kindness," one customer wrote, "Today I saw a young man help an elderly woman cross the street in the rain. They didn't know I was watching, but that moment restored my faith in the goodness of people." Meanwhile, Barron Trump was undergoing his own transformation. He started an anonymous blog where he shared stories about the ordinary people he met during his quiet trips around the city. It wasn't about fame or politics, just the perspective of a young man trying to understand the world. "There are truths about life you can't learn from books or your parents' lessons," he wrote. The story of Barron and Anna became a symbol of kindness and hope. It appeared in speeches about compassion, was shared in business ethics classes, and inspired countless acts of kindness worldwide. If you're reading this, maybe you're in Anna's shoes, struggling with life and searching for the strength to keep going. Or perhaps you're in a position to help others like Barron. Either way, remember, a small act of kindness can change someone's life. What can you do today to make a difference? Maybe it's offering a sincere compliment to a server, helping someone in need, or simply sharing a smile with a stranger. Because as Barron wrote, brighter days are coming. Together we can bring those days closer. If the story of Barron and Anna touched your heart, leave a like and share it with those around you. Your share could be the encouragement someone needs today. Like if you believe kindness can change the world, comment with a moment of